Alright, so this is going to be part 2 to what if Deku had Naoto's powers. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
Bow in the presence of greatness. Cause right now that has forsaken us. You should be honored by my lateness. That I would even show up to this fake shit. So go ahead, go nuts, go.
Alright, so in the last part we just got done with basically Deku getting into UA and basically setting up his personality. So yeah. So with this story or with this what if, I kind of want it to be driven by the viewers. So if you guys have any ideas on how the series should go, tell me down in the comments below. But obviously I'm going to put the final say on things and still contribute to the series by saying how things are going to be. So anyways, if we could get 50 likes on this video, that'd be very much appreciated. And yeah, so like I said in the last part, we just got done with Deku getting into UA. Also, to clarify, some people got confused on how the blood power works. It's not like Deku needs to like hurt himself for the blood to appear. It's just that it just comes out. So I just wanted to say that to clear it up. So anyways, so we would begin on the first day of UA after all the exams would have happened. So in terms of Deku's strength, I think he would be pretty much, he'd be like a power type in terms of the strength. So the normal amount of superhuman strength that you would see in My Hero. So that's gonna be like characters that are able to destroy large amounts of stones and things like that. In terms of speed, I think he'd be probably closer to Ida in terms of speed. So yeah, anyways, so Deku would walk in and he would see Bakugo really like getting yelled at Ida, but instead of actually talking to him, he just goes and sits down. Bakugo is kind of angry at this and stops paying attention to Ida, or kind of gets up and he goes to Deku's desk and he says, "Oh, so you got in here too?" And Deku basically doesn't even acknowledge that he's there. This is where Deku Bakugo gets angry and he basically says, "So you're just gonna ignore me?" And he starts doing little explosions on Deku's desk. This is where Ida would come in, and basically what he would do is lecture Bakugo on the desk and how it's the responsibility of the school that they give it to them just so that they can learn, right? It's something that's really close to Ida and really Bakugo really doesn't like. He's basically disrespecting the school at that point, at least in Ida's mind. And Deku just says whatever. This is when it's about to get more heated, and it's quickly doused down by the entrance of Uraraka. I think Uraraka in this one was still made into the series just because of how her quirk was, and I think she would have still been able to maybe get near the lower parts of, not like as high as she got, but like, because in the series she was only able to be accepted into UA because of that her saving Deku by softening the blow of the landing, I guess. So yeah, after that, this is where Ochako or Uraraka would try to basically introduce herself to the class. Obviously Ida would be there to introduce himself as well, and he would also ask for Deku's name. Deku wouldn't really say too much. He would keep it very impersonal, not really personal at all. He would just say his name is Izuku Midoriya, and that's it. Nothing really about him, and it just ends off there. Eventually, this is where Aizawa would come in and basically tell the class on the Quirk Assessment that they're going to do instead of going to the assembly where it would introduce the new students and things like that. So he tells everyone to get into their PE uniforms and then go to meet him out in the field. So this is where they're going to do the Quirk Assessment and basically test out the limits of everyone's quirk. So as always, they would have Bakugo there to show or be the example to how the difference in using a quirk and not using a quirk is by having him throw the ball. So like he would get his normal scores, that being of 70 and then 700 or around that when he uses quirk and not using his quirk. So after that, so they would get into the different trials, I guess. So first up would be the meter dash, or the race basically. So in this one, because it's a shorter distance than the other races, Ida isn't able to get to his max speed, so it's a lot easier for others to catch up. In this one, I think Deku would actually be first place because it's not a very long stretch of ground, I guess you could say. So with push-ups, he would get first place in most of these things. The only ones I would say that he wouldn't would probably be the ball throw, obviously, as well as maybe the grip strength. It's pretty close on who would win on that. I don't think Deku is super into the realm of superhuman abilities. I think he is still manageable. And yeah, there's also the push-ups. I think he would do pretty well in. The sides, I think he would get second. I don't know if he could beat Mineta with his sticky balls and things like that. So we get to the actual ball throw, and everyone who's gone up has gotten a pretty impressive score, depending on whether or not they're a power type or even if their quirk is even suited to something like that. So we get to Deku, and no one really knows his quirk because he really didn't have an opportunity to really show it during each trial because he doesn't need it at this point. But this is where he actually does use it. And what he does, he makes his blood, he gets the blood from his right arm and turns it into a slingshot, or I guess blood from his left arm, and turns that into a slingshot, and he basically shoots the ball using that. So I would say the ball goes as fast as a bullet. So you might be wondering, how far does a bullet travel? Well, a bullet actually travels 1.2 miles. So if you convert that to meters, you get 1,930.21 meters. So that's very far, especially compared to everyone else. I know Bakugo got like 700 only, so it's very impressive. So at the end of the day, I think Aizawa would kick someone out of Class 1A, and Deku wouldn't be there to really defend them, because Deku is more, I guess, bitter at the world, or even more just, I guess, self-centered, or not really self-centered, but really just looking out for himself, basically. He wouldn't be there to defend anyone who would get kicked out. And in this instance, I would think that the person who gets kicked out of Class 1A would be the Invisible Girl. So I think Mineta would still be in Class 1A because of his high score with the sides. So yeah, I've been thinking about this idea for quite a bit, and I'll put a poll on this video if I remember, and that is, should Monoma go to Class 1A? So Monoma is the one with the copy power from Class 1B, and he's always the one who basically rags on Class 1A, talking about how Class 1B is better. I kind of like his abilities and also his outfit, and I would want to see more of him. So if you guys want that character to be in, or you could tell me down below in the comments, what other character from class 1B should be in class 1A. That being like someone like Kendo or I forgot the middle one, but you get what I mean. So I'll put a poll on this video, telling or asking you guys whether or not you should have, or whether or not you want Monoma to be in it, because the class is uneven. So yeah. So I think everyone would praise Deku, or not really praise, but be really impressed with Deku's performance. And Deku really wouldn't care too much, so he continues to just try to be the person that's in the background, I guess, or someone that is the quiet kid, you could say. But Bakugo's angry, and everyone can see this because Bakugo isn't afraid to show it. He's angry at Deku, saying like, how can Deku improve so much? Because before, back in the middle school, like a year ago, before the end of middle school, or before their final year, or in the second year of middle school I should say, they were pretty much even. But now Deku basically lapped Bakugo many times, and this gets him very angry. So as people are seeing Bakugo basically walk closer and closer to Deku just doesn't care, and people are kind of shocked by this. So Bakugo tells Deku, hey nerd, you think you could just... And this is where Deku just points his palm in front of Bakugo, and Bakugo's confused by this, and he's like, what do you think you're gonna do? And Deku just tells him that to leave him alone, that he doesn't care about Bakugo, and that he should do the same. He should just move on. He beat him, and that's not gonna change anything. He's always gonna be better. Or he's talking about how Deku or himself is gonna be better than him, and there's nothing Bakugo can change about that. And everyone who's just listening to this is just like, they're shocked. This guy just announced or told Bakugo off, this hothead kid, that no matter what he does, he's always going to be second place. Obviously this gets Bakugo even more mad, and he goes and tries to go for a punch at Deku, and this is where Aizawa would restrain him and tell him that, save that for the combat class. And Bakugo just has to listen to Aizawa because he just cancels out his quirk. So they continue on with their day to the point where they get to the next class, which is the combat instruction class, I believe it's called. So in this class, they're gonna teach everyone about combat and different combat scenarios. So All Might comes in, as he is the combat instructor, and he introduces himself to the class. Deku is not really showing too much interest. All Might is his favorite hero, just like a lot of people have him as their favorite hero, but he still isn't too excitable. He still has that kind of chilled kind of personality, but this is where All Might remembers Deku, because if you remember, he did save him from the sludge villain, and he remembers that Deku was actually able to defend himself against the sludge villain. So he remembers him, and he thinks that, wow, this kid was able to get into UA, it must be some sort of fate that he was put in this classroom, or put in class 1A. But anyways, so they get to the point where it's their assignment, which is the kind of heroes versus villains kind of test. So as the series goes, they go and split into teams of two, with Deku and Uraraka going in one team, and Bakugo and Ida going in the other. So Deku doesn't tell much to Uraraka, and really only says to her, hey, just let me deal with Bakugo, and you go for the bomb, basically. And she's kind of confused on why he would want to do this, and she senses that there's some tension between Bakugo and Deku, not only because of what happened at the field, but also this statement that he just said. It's kind of confusing. Well, not really confusing, but it's really weird that he said this. But since he does have a powerful quirk, she has really no reason not to believe him. and he did boast about how he was better than Bakugo in every way, so she's more inclined to believe him. So what happens is that Bakugo is more impulsive than he was in the anime because of how much he's getting humiliated by Deku. So on the first couple of floors, this is where Deku and Bakugo actually fight it's a little bit earlier than it was in the anime, but still pretty early. So basically Uraraka passes Bakugo with no difficulty because Bakugo isn't there for Uraraka. He is set on having Deku to fight. So Deku kind of has this calm face or composition to him, and he basically does a gesture to kind of tell Bakugo to come closer. Bakugo gets mad at this and he does so. He goes for a right hook, and Deku basically knows that this is going to be his signature attack. But this is where Bakugo actually changes it up, and he actually blows an explosion in Deku's face. This causes Deku to kind of get knocked back, as well as cover his face with his hand, as it was painful. He does have his right eye open, and through the smoke he can sense Bakugo. So what he does is that he grabs Bakugo from the neck, and this is where he just throws him. So Bakugo wasn't expecting this too much because he doesn't really know this idea, or he doesn't know this power that Deku has, and that is the the Eye of the Hunter, I believe it was called, that lets him see the life force of people. So Bakugo gets up pretty close, and he goes for another rush attack, which does a little bit different, where he basically charges the Deku and uses his gauntlets to change the momentum of his attack, which does confuse Deku and blasts him back on the back of his it shoots him in the back, and this causes the explosion to cover from his right shoulder all the way down to his back, basically. So what happens is that after that, Bakugo jumps back and he unleashes the pin off of his grenade gauntlet. So Deku knows, he doesn't really know about this particular piece of gear, but he can guess that it's going to be some sort of big explosion, so he gets ready. He covers his arm in a lot of blood, and he basically turns it into, instead of a brass knuckle, to an actual gauntlet. So he goes for a kind of smash attack, just how he would see someone like All Might do. So he does this, and both explosion and his fist collide, and I would say Deku actually wins this one, but kind of barely. The impact from this knocks back Bakugo pretty harshly, and he is basically taken out of the fight. Deku, he is injured really badly as well. His entire arm, from the shoulder to the tips of his fingertips, are basically broken. Also, his collarbone as well is pretty much broken as well. So he's just bruised and broken like that. But he continues and fights through the pain, basically using the tape that he had, I guess actually no, he wouldn't use that. He would use the tape. He would walk slowly to Bakugo and put the tape around him to get him out. Next, what he would do is he would take a piece of his outfit to use that to kind of straighten out his arm as somewhat of a cast. He would then wrap blood around it and use the blood to basically, he would use his control of blood to stop the blood from leaving, and this is where it starts to slowly heal. I don't know how powerful Naruto's heal is. It doesn't really say too much, but we could say that it's pretty good levels of regeneration, but it is slow. So as he continues, it starts to slowly heal. And Deku really hasn't tested out this ability before, like ever, because he's never been in a situation that really required so much healing at once. So he never really noticed it because it's mostly been a passive thing. So he goes up to the top where Uraraka and basically Ida's at. So Ida has a pretty easy time going around Uraraka because there's nothing for her to really use, because if you remember in the anime, he takes out everything that could have been used out of her way so that he has a better chance of winning. When Deku is there, he just wants to get this over with. So what he does is that he just uses his blood to grab on, or because he has the ability Enhancer, this also strengthens his abilities as well as give them more range and give them special properties. So Deku would have been able to basically match Ida's speed to a certain point. Maybe Ida would have been a little bit faster, but he would have been able to be relative to him. And with this, he would use his blood to basically catch on or basically trip over Ida, and this is where he would get the bomb with some difficulty. Obviously, he's still healing, so he ain't that mobile. After a bit, he does get onto the bomb and touches it, while Ida basically crashes into the wall because he got tripped by Deku. After that, Deku just kind of sits on the bomb after it's been laid on the floor, and he kind of he doesn't fall unconscious, but he just kind of lays back because it was a hard battle. So yeah. So after that, he is sent to the infirmary to kind of help fix his arm. So by the time it's already there, it's been probably like 2 hours, and his bones are basically put back into place as well as healed. The only thing that's left is probably only bruising. So yeah, Bakugo is pretty injured himself. I think he would have also gotten basically the same injury as Deku, probably a little bit worse with more of his collarbone broken as well as maybe some ribs. So he is more injured than Deku. So they want to analyze his quirk because this is so many different things, and Deku really didn't go to a quirk doctor, or when he did, they didn't really see too much potential in his quirk. All they saw was he's able to control his blood, and they kind of written it off just like that. So with All Might and, well, not really All Might, with Recovery Girl doing the test there, they discovered that he has more than one ability, that being his blood control as well as his enhancer ability, as well as the regeneration and the Eye of the Hunter. So yeah, so they update his info, and this info is sent to Nezu, who sends the info to All Might. So yeah, I don't think I'm gonna give Deku one for all in this, but you guys seem to like it when I do, but I kind of want to do another story where he doesn't have it. So you guys can tell me down below what you guys want. And yeah, so with that being said, this is gonna be the video. If you made it in the video, please comment down CS so I know you support the video or support the channel. And if you like my content, please give it a like. And if you want to see more of my content, please subscribe. So if you want to see these videos early, you can go to patreon.com/ComicSansTheMan. It'll be in link in the description, and you can go and pledge for only $4, and you'll get the videos early. Or you could support me more by donating or pledging a bit more. Again, if you pledge, you have a chance of being part of the monthly raffle, where I pick basically one person from each tier, and I get to draw something for each of them. It could be anything, and by next month I'll show you basically stuff that I have drawn for them, because it has to be next month so that they don't cancel the pledges and things like that. But anyways, let's give a shout out to the Patreon, to the patrons over on Patreon. So let's start off with our golden tier, and that's gonna be Isaiah Perez, Alan James, Taimal, I can't really say his other name, and then we have Lyco, and the Pirate King. So let's go down to our platinum tier, and that's gonna be Panda Man 8. So yeah, if you want to join them, get content early, or be part of the weekly raffle, or the monthly raffle, you could go to the description down below. But anyways, with that being said, let's get into the video. So yeah.